Have you ever met someone who changed your life in just one moment?
For Hannah, working at one of Seoul's most prestigious hotels had always been a dream. She had started as a simple waitress in the hotel's fine dining restaurant, serving high-profile guests with the utmost professionalism. She had seen politicians, CEOs, and even celebrities pass through, but she had never expected one particular guest to leave a lasting impact on her life. That day started like any other. Hannah arrived early, adjusting her uniform, making sure every detail was perfect. The restaurant inside the luxury hotel was famous for its exquisite cuisine and flawless service. Everything had to be perfect. As she walked through the dining hall, setting up tables and ensuring everything was in place, her manager approached her.
"Hannah, we have a VIP guest arriving for dinner tonight," he said in a low voice. "We need you to handle his table personally." Hannah nodded professionally. "Of course. May I ask who the guest is?"
The manager glanced around before leaning in slightly.
"Kim Soo-hyun." Hannah's heart skipped a beat. Kim Soo-hyun? The famous actor?
She had seen his movies and dramas, admired his talent like the rest of the country. But never in a million years had she expected to serve him in person. "Make sure everything is flawless," the manager added.
"He doesn't demand special treatment, but we can't afford any mistakes." Hannah swallowed hard. Understood. That evening, the restaurant was busier than usual.
The moment Kim Soo-hyun entered, there was a subtle shift in the atmosphere. Conversations lowered, some guests stealing glances, but no one dared to approach him directly. He was dressed in a tailored suit, his posture relaxed yet commanding.
His presence alone was enough to turn heads. Taking a deep breath, Hannah stepped forward with a warm, professional smile. "Good evening, Mr. Kim. Welcome. May I show you to your table?" He gave her a polite nod. "Thank you."
She led him to a private section, ensuring he had a quiet space to enjoy his meal without unnecessary attention.
Once he was seated, she handed him the menu. "Please take your time. If you need any recommendations, I'd be happy to assist."
Kim Soo-hyun scanned the menu for a moment before looking up.
"What do you recommend?" Hannah hesitated.
Most guests preferred sticking to the restaurant's signature dishes, but she had always believed in personal touches. "Well," she started carefully, "if you prefer something light, our grilled sea bass is excellent.
If you'd like something richer, the Wagyu steak is one of our best dishes."
A small smile tugged at his lips.
"I'll go with your recommendation. The sea bass, please." She nodded. "Of course. And to drink?"
"Just water is fine," he said simply. Hannah placed the order and hurried off, her heart still racing.
He's just another guest. Stay professional. But deep down, she knew this wasn't just any ordinary guest.
What she didn't know, however, was that this night would change everything. Hannah tried to focus on her tasks, but she couldn't ignore the fact that Kim Soo-hyun was sitting just a few meters away, calmly waiting for his meal. Just stay professional, she reminded herself. The kitchen was working at its usual perfect rhythm, and within minutes, the chef placed the plated grilled sea bass on the counter. "Order up for table 7, the chef called.
Hannah took a deep breath and carefully carried the dish over.
She approached the table with grace, setting the plate down in front of Kim Soo-hyun with a warm yet reserved smile.
"Here is your grilled sea bass, sir. Please enjoy."
He looked up, making brief eye contact with her before nodding.
"Thank you."
She stepped back, giving him space, but as she walked away, she could feel his presence lingering behind her. For the next 20 minutes, she went about her usual tasks, refilling glasses, assisting other tables, and making sure everything ran smoothly. She didn't dare glance at his table too often, but she noticed something surprising.
Unlike other high-profile guests, Kim Soo-hyun wasn't glued to his phone or rushing through his meal. He seemed to genuinely enjoy the food, taking his time, appreciating every bite.
Finally, when he finished, she approached again.
"Was everything to your liking, Mr. Kim?"
He placed his napkin on the table and nodded.
"It was excellent. Thank you for the recommendation." Relief flooded through her. I'm glad to hear that.
She was about to ask if he needed anything else, but he spoke first. You've been very attentive, he said, his tone thoughtful.
Do you enjoy working here? Hannah blinked. She hadn't expected the conversation to turn personal. Most guests, especially celebrities, kept their interactions formal and brief.
Still, she maintained her professionalism.
Yes, I do. It can be demanding, but I take pride in providing good service. Kim Soo-hyun gave a small, approving nod. It shows. Thank you for making the experience pleasant.
Hannah felt a warmth spread through her chest.
A genuine compliment from someone like him.
Before she could respond, he reached for something inside his jacket pocket. She assumed it was his wallet, ready to settle the bill. But instead, he placed a white envelope on the table. Her eyes flickered to it, confused.
Sir. Kim Soo-hyun stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. This is for you, he said simply. And no, it's not a tip.
Hannah stared at the envelope, her mind racing.
What?
Before she could process what was happening, he gave her a polite nod.
Thank you for your kindness tonight, he said before turning and walking toward the exit.
Hannah stood frozen, watching as he disappeared through the restaurant doors. She looked down at the envelope, her heart pounding.
What could this possibly be?
With trembling hands, she carefully picked it up and opened it. What she saw inside made her gasp aloud. Hannah's hands trembled as she pulled the contents of the envelope out. Inside, she found a neatly folded piece of paper and something else, something that made her breath hitch.
A check. Not just any check.
A check with an amount so large that her mind struggled to process it.
Wait, this can't be real.
Her heart pounded as she quickly unfolded the paper, revealing a handwritten note. Scroll to the waitress who treated me with kindness.
Service is not just about taking orders, it's about making people feel welcome, and you did that effortlessly.
I can see that you work hard, and I wanted to leave something that might help in whatever dreams you were chasing.
Thank you for your sincerity. Keep going.
At the bottom, there was no signature, just a simple smiley face.
Hannah covered her mouth, her eyes wide. This isn't just a generous tip. This is life-changing.
She looked at the check again, her vision blurring slightly. It was more than what she earned in an entire year.
Her mind raced. Why would he do this? Why would someone like Kim Soo-hyun give such an enormous gift to a simple waitress?
Before she could even process her emotions, her co-worker appeared beside her.
Hannah? Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost.
Hannah swallowed hard, her voice shaky.
I don't know how to explain this. Her co-worker frowned. What do you mean? Wordlessly, Hannah handed her the note.
As her co-worker read through it, her eyes grew wider. Then, she let out a small gasp. Is this, from Kim Soo-hyun? She whispered.
Hannah nodded slowly.
Then, her co-worker's gaze dropped to the check. The moment she saw the amount, she let out an audible gasp.
Hannah, this is insane. Shoo. Hannah quickly hushed her, glancing around the restaurant.
She tucked the check and note back into the envelope and held it close to her chest, her mind spinning.
What am I supposed to do with this? Do I keep it? It felt unreal. Money like this could change everything for her.
She had been saving for years just to afford a better apartment, to help her younger sibling through school. And now, out of nowhere, Kim Soo-hyun had given her more than she could have ever dreamed of. Her co-worker grabbed her arm.
You have to thank him. Maybe he's still in the lobby. Hannah hesitated. Would that be the right thing to do? Would he even want to be thanked?
Her heart pounded as she made a decision. Without another word, she turned and ran out of the restaurant. She had to find him. She had to at least try. She had no idea that this was only the beginning. Hannah rushed out of the restaurant, the envelope clutched tightly in her hand.
He couldn't have gone far.
Her eyes darted around the luxurious hotel lobby, scanning every corner. Guests were walking in and out, businesspeople chatting, bellboys handling luggage, but there was no sign of Kim Soo-hyun. Her heart pounded. Did he already leave? Just as she was about to turn back, she spotted a familiar tall figure near the entrance, speaking with someone. It was him. Her breath caught in her throat. For a moment, she hesitated. What was she going to say? But before she could second-guess herself, her feet started moving. "Excuse me, Mr. Kim," she called out, her voice slightly breathless. Kim Soo-hyun turned around, surprised to see her. His expression was calm, unreadable. "Hannah," he said, recognizing her immediately. "You ran all the way here?" She slowed her steps as she approached, trying to catch her breath. "Yes. I wanted to." "I needed to." She took a deep breath, then held up the envelope. "This," she said firmly. "This is too much. I can't accept it." Kim Soo-hyun looked at the envelope in her hands, then back at her face. For a moment, he said nothing. Then, he smiled slightly. "Why not?" Hannah blinked. "Because, it's too much. I don't deserve this kind of generosity." Kim Soo-hyun let out a soft chuckle. "Says who?" She stared at him, unsure how to respond. He continued, his tone gentle but firm. "Hannah, do you know how many times I've walked into fancy restaurants and been treated like I'm just another customer with money to spend? Most people either act overly eager or too afraid to even talk to me properly." She frowned. "I don't understand." "You treated me like a person, not a celebrity, not a status symbol, just someone enjoying a meal," he said simply. "That's rare." Hannah felt her heart squeeze at his words. She had never thought about it that way. But she still hesitated. "But this money, it's too much for just a meal." Kim Soo-hyun gave her a knowing look. "It's not about the meal. It's about what you're working for." She stiffened slightly. "What do you mean?" "I heard you speaking to one of your co-workers earlier," he said. "You mentioned something about saving for your family. For your younger sibling." Hannah's breath hitched. He heard that? She had only mentioned it in passing, not thinking anyone was listening. "I don't believe in giving money just for the sake of it," he continued. "I give when I see potential. And I see that in you." Hannah stared at him, speechless. No one had ever said something like that to her before. For years, she had worked tirelessly, putting her dreams aside to support her family. She had never expected someone like Kim Soo-hyun to notice, let alone believe in her. Tears pricked at her eyes, but she quickly blinked them away. Kim Soo-hyun smiled again. "So, tell me, Hannah. Are you going to keep refusing something that could change your life? Or are you finally going to let someone help you for once?" Hannah swallowed hard. She had spent so long doing everything on her own. She wasn't used to receiving help. But maybe, just maybe, this time, she should. Her fingers tightened around the envelope. And then, she made her decision. Hannah clutched the envelope, her mind racing. Should I really accept this? She had spent years working tirelessly, never once asking for handouts, never expecting anyone to step in and help. She had always believed that if she wanted a better life, she would have to earn it herself. But now, standing in front of Kim Soo-hyun, hearing his words, she felt something shift inside her. This wasn't about charity. This wasn't about luck. This was someone recognizing her effort and telling her that it was okay to receive help. Her throat felt tight as she slowly looked up at him. I don't know what to say." Kim Soo-hyun smiled, his expression warm but patient. "You don't have to say anything," he said simply. "Just promise me you'll use it for something that matters to you." Hannah swallowed hard, her fingers tightening around the envelope. Something that mattered to her. For so long, she had only focused on surviving, paying rent, saving what little she could, making sure her younger sibling had opportunities she never had. But what about her?
What about her own dreams?
Kim Soo-hyun must have noticed the emotions flickering across her face because he tilted his head slightly.
You're thinking about it, aren't you? He asked. Hannah let out a small, nervous laugh. I've never had someone believe in me like this. Kim Soo-hyun's expression softened.
Then maybe it's time you start believing in yourself, too. His words hit deeper than she expected. For a long time, she had thought of herself as just a waitress, just another worker trying to make ends meet.
But maybe she was more than that.
Maybe this was her chance to finally take a step towards something bigger.
Taking a deep breath, she nodded.
Okay, she said, her voice quiet but steady.
I'll accept it.
A satisfied smile crossed Kim Soo-hyun's face.
Good. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Hannah was still processing everything that had just happened.
But then, a thought struck her. Why do you do things like this? She asked suddenly.
Most people in your position wouldn't go out of their way to help someone like me.
Kim Soo-hyun exhaled softly, his gaze thoughtful. Because I remember what it was like to have a dream but no way to reach it, he admitted. Before I made it, there were people who helped me, people who saw something in me when I didn't even see it in myself.
Hannah listened intently.
I can never pay them back, he continued.
But what I can do is pass it forward.
She stared at him, absorbing his words.
Pass it forward.
It was such a simple idea, yet so powerful.
Maybe one day, she could do the same.
Maybe she wouldn't always be the one receiving help, maybe one day, she could be the one helping someone else.
Kim Soo-hyun glanced at his watch. I should get going.
Hannah blinked, suddenly realizing that their conversation had stretched longer than she expected. She quickly bowed.
Thank you, for everything. He smiled. No need to thank me. Just make it count.
And with that, he turned and walked toward the exit. Hannah watched him go, the envelope still pressed against her chest. Her life had just changed in a way she never could have imagined. And for the first time in years, she felt hope. Hannah stood frozen in place, watching as Kim Soo-hyun disappeared through the hotel entrance. The envelope in her hand suddenly felt heavier than before, not just because of what was inside, but because of what it represented.
A chance.
A chance to break free from the routine she had been stuck in for years.
A chance to dream again.
She took a deep breath and turned back toward the restaurant, her mind still reeling. As soon as she stepped inside, her co-workers swarmed her.
What happened? Did you catch him in time? Did he say anything? Hannah hesitated before slowly holding up the envelope. He told me to keep it.
Her best friend and co-worker, Myri, gasped.
Wait. So you tried to return it, and he still wanted you to have it? Hannah nodded.
Myri stared at her, eyes wide.
Hannah, do you have any idea what this means?
Another co-worker chimed in, whispering dramatically, you're literally the girl who got a gift from Kim Soo-hyun.
Do you know how many people would kill to be in your place right now? Hannah groaned. Please, don't say it like that. It's not like that. Myri smirked. Then what is it like? Hannah sighed, running a hand through her hair. I don't know. It just feels unreal. Her manager, who had been quietly listening, finally stepped forward. Hannah, can I speak with you in my office for a moment? The chatter around them stopped instantly.
Hannah gulped and followed him, her heart pounding. Inside the office, the manager closed the door and sat down at his desk, studying her carefully. Hannah, you've been an excellent employee since the day you started here, he began. You're hardworking, reliable, and always professional.
She nodded cautiously. Thank you, sir.
But, he continued, tapping his fingers against the desk, this situation is unprecedented.
Hannah's stomach dropped. Am I in trouble?
Her manager shook his head.
No, not at all. But I need to ask you, what do you plan to do now? She hesitated. What do you mean? He sighed. You just received an amount of money that could change your life. Are you planning to keep working here? Or are you going to use it to do something else? She hadn't thought about that. Was she really going to stay? For years, she had convinced herself that this job was all she could do. That she had no choice but to keep working, saving, struggling. But now, she actually had a choice. Her manager leaned forward. I don't want to pressure you, Hannah. But I think you should take some time to think. You've always taken care of others, maybe now, it's time to take care of yourself. Hannah swallowed hard. Time to take care of myself. She had never considered that before. She took a deep breath and nodded. I think I need to figure things out. Her manager smiled. That's all I needed to hear. Just know that no matter what you decide, we'll support you. Hannah left the office feeling more uncertain than ever. This was her turning point. But what path would she take? She had no idea. All she knew was that her life would never be the same again. Hannah sat alone in the hotel break room, staring at the envelope resting on the table in front of her. What do I do now? For years, she had followed the same routine, waking up early, working long hours, saving every penny she could. She had never allowed herself to think beyond that. Now, for the first time in her life, she had options. She opened the envelope again, running her fingers over the check inside. The amount still made her chest tighten. It was enough to change everything, to move to a better place, to support her younger siblings' education, maybe even to finally chase her own dreams. But what exactly were her dreams? She had given up thinking about them a long time ago. A soft knock on the break room door pulled her from her thoughts. Myri peeked inside. Hey. You okay? Hannah exhaled slowly. I don't know. This is all too much. Myri walked in and sat across from her. I get it. This isn't just about the money, is it? Hannah shook her head. It's about everything. My whole life, I've only ever worked and saved. I never thought about what I really wanted. And now, I have no idea what to do with this opportunity. Myri smiled gently. Then maybe it's time you start thinking about it. Hannah stared at her friend, her mind racing. What do I want? Myri continued, you don't have to make a decision today. But whatever you do, promise me one thing? Hannah looked at her questioningly. What? Promise me you won't waste this chance. Hannah swallowed hard. Could she really do something for herself for once? She nodded slowly. Okay. I promise. Myri grinned. Good. Now come on, we still have a shift to finish. Hannah let out a small laugh, feeling just a bit lighter. But deep down, she knew this wasn't something she could ignore for long. Because this was the moment her life changed forever. That night, as she lay in bed, she did something she hadn't done in years. She let herself dream. She thought about the things she had once wanted, before responsibilities took over. And for the first time, she let herself believe that maybe, just maybe, she could have a different future. As she drifted off to sleep, her phone buzzed. Envelope with arrow message from unknown number. I hope you're doing well, Hannah. If you ever need any advice, I'm just a message away. Take care. Her heart skipped a beat. Kim Soo-hyun. She stared at the message for a long time before typing her reply. Envelope with arrow, thank you. I think I'm finally ready to figure out what's next. She hit send. And with that, her new life had begun. The next morning, Hannah woke up feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time, determination. For years, she had moved through life on autopilot, following the same routine, never stopping to ask herself what she truly wanted. But now, thanks to one unexpected act of kindness, she had the chance to change everything. She sat at the small desk in her apartment, the envelope resting beside her, and took out a notebook. For the first time in years, she started writing down possibilities. Push pin options. Help her younger sibling with tuition. Move to a better apartment. Take a business course. Start her own cafe.
She stared at the last line, her heart pounding.
Start her own cafe.
The thought had crossed her mind many times before.
She had spent so many years working in restaurants, learning everything about customer service, food, and hospitality.
But she had never considered doing it for herself.
Until now.
Her phone buzzed, breaking her thoughts.
Envelope with arrow message from Kim Soo-hyun. Good morning. Have you figured out what's next yet? Hannah hesitated before replying. Envelope with arrow, not exactly. But I think I have an idea. Within seconds, another message arrived. Envelope with arrow, that's a good start. Let me know if you ever need advice. Hannah smiled softly. This was really happening.
She didn't know how everything would turn out, but for the first time, she was ready to take a chance. She stood up, grabbed the envelope, and took a deep breath. Then, she walked out the door toward her new future. Speech balloon. If you've made it this far, type new chapter in the comments.